Welcome back, Buttercups. I think many investors have been severely underestimating the sheer volume, size, and scale Alibaba has on both the international and local platforms. If you were to look at the growth trajectory, look at their growth rate, look at the amount of volume that they have been facilitating in terms of transactions, in terms of movements of goods and services, you can see a lot of all these international platforms like eBay, Amazon, all of them pale in comparison, which is also why the critical factor that human beings are unable to comprehend is just the large volume. All of us think that, hey, 10 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people, that's not a lot of people. Can you comprehend what 1 billion people feels like? How does it feel like governing 1.4 billion population? I think that has always been the problem in people understanding exponential increase and really comprehend the volume that we are talking about. So, China's Singles Day, which is arguably one of the largest e-commerce event in the entire world, which also happens in November 11th, which is called 11/11. It recently just kick-started, even though it's more of like a period of time. The event runs through from 1st of November all the way to the 11th. Throughout this 10-day period, it has always been a critical factor and a critical period in understanding what is the health of the entire China economy, because as more and more people spend money, also explains and probably also relatively translates to a pretty healthy income level and a pretty healthy and pretty optimistic population. Oh, remember to decimate the like button, don't just destroy them, to help me boost my ego. I'll also leave the handles to my Twitter and Instagram account if you'd like to get real-time clownery updates from me. So feel free to follow me there too. Oh, I have a Discord chat too if you want to join our community. There's no paywall, but please just don't flood them with bots. I'm still suffering from PTSD by all the bot attacks. All the links will be in the description box down below. In return, I'll show you a picture of me and Bei. With that, let's get right into today's topic. So, China's Singles Day shopping event actually kicks off under the spectre of tax scrutiny and sees common prosperity. So as you all know, every time Chairman Xi or anytime the high officials of CCP say something, it's constantly echoed in every single article. So I can tell you, like the Alibaba fine, this idea of a common prosperity will constantly pop up in every single article you read, especially that things that are related to China from now on. Mark my words, I know the Western media too well. Anyway, many of the China's online shopping companies have since jumped on the bandwagon, making Singles Day bigger than Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the US combined by the way. Now, JD.com and Alibaba actually kicked off their promotion on October 20th, allowing customers to pay a deposit for items and secure the big discounts. So like I said, officially it starts on the 1st of November, but honestly, a lot of all these e-commerce sites or e-commerce platform already started a lot of their promotions, already started a lot of their discounts way earlier on to try to not crash the entire platform. And for those of you who haven't been following me, I'll leave the thumbnail here. Essentially, the China shoppers crashed the entire Alibaba platform on the first day that the discounts were given. Now, there's always been concerns surrounding the Alibaba competition. Alibaba is a very huge company. However, there are promising competitors trying to get the pie off Alibaba's hand. So you have companies like JD, you have companies like Pinduoduo. Both of them have been challenging Alibaba for the last decade or so. And both of them happen to also be riding onto Tencent's ecosystem, where Tencent has a sizable investment in both companies. Essentially, Tencent is kind of running a proxy war with Alibaba. And in this case, on top of rising competition, there are also many problems plaguing the Chinese economy today. One such concern is the slowing growth in the China's economy. For those of you who have been reading up and have been following the news quite closely, I think in the Q3 result, analysts have been sandbagging their expectations for China's GDP growth for the entire year this year, especially Goldman Sachs. And there's also a recent slew of sluggish retail sales data. So more importantly, other than a GDP slowdown, I think there's a myriad of different data points and a lot of different data sets that we have to take into account as well. The ongoing trade war with Australia, which also drives the coal prices up and a lot of problems within the manufacturing output. There was also the property market debacle, which really caused a lot of commotion on the ground. However, there are still indications that consumers are willing to spend on this year's shopping festival. So in a 3,000 survey carried out by Bain, slightly more than half, around 52% of the respondents said that they were willing to spend more than last year, while only 8% said that they were planning to decrease their spending. I think the silver lining is a lot of things are pending for approval. Many of the researchers and analysts sitting on the sideline evaluating the entire pandemic developments over the last 2 years or so have been saying that, hey, China has paid a huge price in locking down their economy by having such stringent policy and regulations put in place. And a lot of their tourism sector, a lot of all these visits and all these tourism dollars have been severely discounted. And by essentially pulling themselves out of the world economy, many people have been speculating that, hey, China actually paid a much higher price in terms of cost-benefit analysis. But like I said, the silver lining out of this entire development, China's money is locked into their own economy. All these rich people, don't talk about the rich people, even the middle class, people enjoy traveling. Trust me, Asians enjoy traveling because they would like to see the world. Maybe compared to the rest of the other Western counterparts, people here feel extremely trapped. They like to broaden their horizon. They like to travel overseas. And in this case, before the pandemic, and the Chinese tourists actually contribute one of the highest in terms of spending across the globe. So in this case, if there was a lockdown in China and many people are restricted, or at least they feel that it's a hassle to travel overseas, because if you were to return back, you have to undergo the 14 days or 21 days quarantine again. So it essentially deterred a lot of people from traveling overseas. And what happens to all these people that can't travel overseas? Because you can no longer travel to Milan to buy the designer bag. So where do you buy them from? You buy them from Tmall or you buy them from JD. That's what happened. People will still find a way to satisfy their desires. Now, it is also said that JD and Alibaba's Tmall platform actually still have a very strong loyalty among consumers. So to continue the growth momentum, Alibaba and JD.com have both looked to target consumers in the smaller Chinese cities beyond the large metropolis. So essentially, both of them want to start eating up the market share of Pinduoduo. So for all of us who know the competitive landscape of the e-commerce in China, Pinduoduo has always been dominating and has always tried to monopolize the lower tier cities by providing them with a C2M business model and essentially embracing the idea of group buying. So with this entire concept in play, it really taps onto the price sensitivity of a lot of the consumers who are residing in all these lower tier cities. So in this case, you can see that Alibaba and JD is coercing an attack on Pinduoduo in trying to get some of the market share in all these lower tier cities. While Pinduoduo, on the other hand, is also slowly working their way up in trying to get some of the market share from all these higher tier cities by going up the value chain. So essentially, both of them are stepping into each other's territory. But as of now, as far as I'm concerned as a shareholder of Alibaba, Alibaba has a pretty big presence and a pretty big dominance in both markets. JD is still on the way and Pinduoduo is also on the way, which is also evident and also translated in the entire e-commerce market share. So now, the main concern comes. What is this idea of common prosperity? It has always been echoed by the highest office of CCP. How exactly are companies supposed to position themselves to ensure that they are aligned with the Chinese government? I think that's the biggest question in a lot of analysts and a lot of investors' mind. So one of the core pillars of the CCP strategy is really this idea of sustainability. They want good growth, not only want good growth, they want long-lasting growth. So which is also this focus on quality over quantity, and more importantly, whether it's sustainable in the long run or not. So in this case, just last week, actually the China's Ministry of Industry and Infotech actually called onto the e-commerce firms to curb marketing spams via text messages. So honestly, I don't really know what's the impact of all these marketing messages, but because of all this spam, it might be justified, it might be not justified. But I'm fairly confident that a majority of all these Chinese consumers are aware of this 11/11 event. Heck, don't talk about China. I think across Asia, all the consumers, shoppers, buyers are just flocking towards trying to capitalize this entire e-commerce event. So I understand that the regulators essentially don't want to induce spending via all this spam or marketing messages, but ultimately you can't really stop the people from buying things if they want to, especially when they're all cooped up and they have nothing better to do at home. On top of that, Alibaba also said that the focus will be on sustainability and inclusivity. Great, essentially singing the same tune as the government. Now, we are indeed optimistic about the festival's overall results, but more importantly, we are committed to building the future for the economy and online consumption. So Alibaba's logistics unit Cainiao will also focus on recycling, while the company will also offer $100 million yuan worth of green vouchers to incentivize shopping decisions that contribute to an environmentally friendly lifestyle. So JD.com has also focused on sustainability, saying that the largest one ever where renewable energies is being used. I think even as an international consumer or just an international player in this entire world, we really have to give it to the Chinese government. Essentially, whatever the heck they say, all the companies will be under their bidding. It's unlike any other countries in the world. Just touch your heart and ask yourself, which capitalistic country in the world has governments that has such a disproportionate impact in all the businesses? Whatever the government say, within 1 or 2 months, every single businesses will be aligned with you. We will listen to what are your strategic goals and align accordingly, which is also why I think many people actually discount this idea of unity. When the government and the businesses actually have a common goal in mind, when everybody is working together to reach a common goal, I think it will be far more effective. However they do it, I think it's entirely up to the country. Now, the Double 11 shopping festival actually trended on Chinese social media, and a new record sales is expected. And of course, I think I did put a tweet before. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please feel free to do so. I'll put a screenshot somewhere on the screen. And I'm actually extremely hopeful of Alibaba doing what the entire e-commerce industry did on 11/11 in 2020, which is around 113 billion. Now, according to the rules laid out by major e-commerce platforms, including Alibaba and JD during Double 11, users just need to pay an initial deposit to gain access to the discounts, with the remaining amount due before a designated deadline. So within 4 hours after the sales began on JD, hot items included 3C products were sold out. The transactions for Apple soared over 200% year-on-year, and sales for high-end laptops were up 340%. The transaction from Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo all outperformed last year's number within 1 hour. And Alibaba Group this year, with a record 290,000 brands participating and more than 14 million discount deals. So it is expected that this year's promotion will see a 100% sales growth in 1,200 new categories. And it will also boost the sales of high-quality agricultural products worth more than $30 billion yuan. So just to give you guys a bit of context, Alibaba actually generated around 74 billion USD in GMV, which is gross merchandise value, during the 2020 11/11 Global Shopping Festival. And in the fiscal year 2021, because their financial year ends on 31st March 2021, so in that period of time, they actually did a GMV of around 1.24 trillion US dollars. Trillion with a T, by the way. So if you were to really compare it to the results that Amazon have been delivering, Amazon in 2020 actually only did $475 billion in GMV. So essentially, Alibaba did twice of what Amazon is doing. Even though Amazon seems to be like the international brand, even people in Singapore or people all across the group knows Amazon as the e-commerce company. But how is Alibaba doing 1.25x of what Amazon did? That's a food for thought, and that really goes to show the sheer volume and size Alibaba is currently generating. And more importantly for Amazon, they have always took pride in their same-day delivery, in their logistics prowess, in terms of being customer-centric, because ultimately they believe that if you put the customer in the middle of all you do, you will inevitably gain customers' loyalty over time. But that said, numbers don't lie. Alibaba is still the biggest by far in terms of e-commerce prowess, in terms of e-commerce scale, and in terms of facilitating the highest amount of volume of GMV till date. That said, of course, Amazon has a very lucrative business model, including AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. It currently is running a semi-monopoly in the entire global and international market. But I'd just like to say, at least on the e-commerce front, Alibaba don't seem to be losing out. And with the amount of growth and the explosive emergence of the middle class in China, Now you will understand why am I so optimistic about the e-commerce industry and in particular Alibaba as a company. And last but not least, I'd just like to address the idea of Alibaba's earning estimate constantly being slashed by analysts. So for those of you who trade analyst estimates like it's the Bible and you hug it to sleep every night, I would just like to say, in the short term, of course, there has been a lot of problems plaguing China. There's the power shortages, the property problem, and the GDP slowdown. So in the short term, of course, I would also presume that it might not be as optimistic as we projected, but at least take a longer time view. A lot of all these analysts work on the time frame of 2 quarters or 4 quarters out. They want to have a price prediction or price target within 1 year of the stock. And as you all know, the entire Chinese crackdown lasted for at least or around 1 year. So in this case, how are you going to account for all these different valuations? So in this case, if you're really worried about the upcoming Alibaba's earnings call, please revisit your underlying thesis. Have your bull thesis changed? Are all your critical points still intact? If Alibaba is still functioning as a company, what are you afraid of? Isn't it just a good buy the dip opportunity? With that, I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I'll see you on the moon. Goodbye!